welcome back to my channel. I was like 20 minutes into filming this video already when my battery died. When my battery dies, I don't get a warning, and also it doesn't save the footage. Awesome. So that sucks. And I don't have a lot of time to just wash everything off and start all over again. So I'm just going to give you the information and explain what's going on my face. So as you read from the title, we're here to talk about the ABH Luminous Foundation as well as the Fenty Beauty Pro Filt'R Hydrating Foundation. I had put up a poll on my community tab a little while ago asking which of some of the new foundations you guys were most interested in, and those were the two winners. Thank you so much, because those were the two that I was most interested in as well. Because my time is limited in real life, I don't have time to do full dedicated reviews to both of these foundations, but what I thought would be helpful is doing a comparison of the two so that we can really see how both of them perform. They both do make similar claims in that they both say they have medium to full buildable coverage and that they have a natural finish. And they also both happen to release on the same day. So in the footage that disappeared when my battery died, I was applying it to my face. So on this half of my face, I have the Fenty Beauty Pro Filt'R, and on this half, I have the ABH Luminous. We will go through it. I will let you know what my impressions were of it as I was applying it. You're just unfortunately not going to get to see me applying it, which is frustrating, but there it is. So what I'll do is I'll give you a bit of information about both of them and then explain to you how I felt about it putting them on and any similarities / differences that I notice. So first up is the Fenty Beauty Pro Filt'R Hydrating Longwear Foundation. Like I've said before, we need to cap product names at like 3 words. You get 3, and if you can't tell me what it is in 3, that is too bad. That aside, here's the outer packaging. It says that it is hydrating, medium to full coverage for all skin tones, long wear, and light as air. And I did point out when I was filming this 10 minutes ago that in the ingredient list there is talc is listed as the second ingredient, and then way down on the list there is parfum / fragrance. So if you're sensitive to either of those things, just be aware that they are in here. I can't speak to any of the other ingredients that are in here because I am not an expert on that. I am not even like a layman on that. So if you are particularly concerned about certain ingredients, always do your research. The cost of this foundation in Canada is $45, and for that you get 32 mils, which is just slightly over that standard 1 ounce, coming in at 1.08 fluid ounces. I got the shade 180, which is light with golden undertones is my guess. Unfortunately, I can't check it right now because Barry has actually gone out with the kids with the router to get a new one because our internet is frustrating lately. Okay, so here is the outer packaging. It is a very malleable squeeze tube, and then when you open it up, it has a pump. Frankly, because it is such a squeezable tube, I think it would have made sense for it to have a squeeze tip, sort of like the Dior Backstage, but here we are with a pump. On it, it just says to massage well if needed, pump and squeeze tube simultaneously to release air. This one does have a slight fragrance to it. It's nothing overwhelming. It smells a little bit like a skincare product, like it's not particularly floral, it's not fruity, it's just a scent. It's not off-putting and it dissipates really quickly, but as I was applying it, I could smell it like on the brush. It blended very nicely. Again, it's on this side of my face. I didn't have to work really hard to get it smoothed out. It didn't leave brush marks behind. When I touch it, you don't see like a finger indentation, anything like that. I haven't set anything on my face yet, so what you see is what you get. The coverage on it, I would say, is on the higher end of medium. I do have some freckles on my nose and a couple over here, which are largely covered up by this. You can still see them. I can see them probably more than anybody else can because I know where to look for them. But nonetheless, it still does look very skin-like on my face. I don't see it like sitting on top of the skin. It has sunk in nicely. It's been on for probably like about 10 minutes at this point. It hasn't dried completely down, so I would want to set this. It does transfer onto my fingers just a tiny little bit as I'm pressing it, but it's not messing up the foundation as I'm doing that. Like I said, it's been on about 10 minutes. There's a tiny little bit of gathering around my nose at this point, and in those fine lines under my eyes. I did take it up all the way under my eyes on both sides just to see what would happen because that's where I have the most fine lines. And so if I zoom it in a bit and turn the lights down a bit, there we go. You may be able to see that there's just a little bit, tiny little bit in here, and then that's the bigger offender right in that crease right in there. It's just kind of gathered up in there, but it does blend out if I do that. Obviously I would set it and that would probably prevent it from doing that, but just wanted to share because that's all part of it. Moving over to the ABH side of things, the outer packaging here lists a whole number of claims on it. It says that it's vegan, gluten-free, alcohol-free, clinically tested, dermatologist tested, ophthalmologist tested, non-comedogenic, suitable for sensitive skin, long-wearing, and no flashback. Again, it claims to be a medium coverage foundation with a luminous natural finish. I have the shade 210N, which I think again would be like light neutral. Again, I can't check it, but those are the shades that I typically look for, are light with neutral / golden undertones, something along those lines. I can get away with neutral or golden. Can't do really peach or pink, for sure cannot do pink, but light is where I'm usually at. Okay, so the outer packaging here is a nice glass bottle, very sleek, and the thing that I know a lot of people were sort of like, why would you do that? The big word foundation on the side, but it's only on one side, so there's 3 other options. You can just display it on the one that doesn't say it. This is $50, and for that you get 30 mils, so 1 fluid ounce. So you're getting a tiny bit less than the Fenty, and the Fenty is $5 less here in Canada than the ABH. The lid just comes right off like that, and again it has a nice little pump. This is the one that I have on this side of my face, and the shade match between the two is actually pretty spot on. In the mirror I cannot see a difference between the two, and I wouldn't know that I was wearing 2 foundations if I hadn't applied it that way myself. This one does not have any fragrance to it, so I didn't notice that at all as I was applying. It doesn't say that it's fragrance free, but I didn't smell anything, and I don't see fragrance listed in the ingredients. One thing to note is that on the ABH it does have the cruelty-free bunny symbol on it, whereas this one does not, and it does not make any claims to be cruelty-free. Okay. So then in terms of coverage on this one, I find that this one is just a hair less coverage than the Fenty. I didn't try to build it up. It does say that it is buildable, but I just went in with 2 pumps on both sides just so that we can compare apples to apples. So it is good coverage, but it's not quite as much as this, but by a very minimal amount. Like, it's nothing that I would say that one is lacking than the other, or one's not truly medium. I do think they're both medium. I just think this one is like edging a little bit more towards full, but not quite there. This one I can see the freckles on my nose a little bit more predominantly, and then some of the spots, like I have one over here and I have one over here. I can still see it through the foundation on both sides, but some of the like more light freckles are covered up a little bit more by the Fenty. Both of them applied in a very similar manner. I used the same brush for both of them, so I used the Sephora number 88, which is the Pro Slanted Buffing Brush, and I wiped it off really well on a towel in between this foundation to this foundation, just in case it would manipulate it in any way. Also, in regards to that, I used the Dior Backstage Primer because it doesn't add any luminosity, it doesn't mattify, it doesn't pore fill. It's basically just a very nondescript sort of base. I just find it to be nice and hydrating, and it helps to make everything apply really smoothly without interfering with the foundation itself. If I look at the corner of my nose on this side or at those fine lines under here, it hasn't bunched up in the same way that the Fenty did. The ABH foundation does claim that you don't need to set it. Again, it's a little tacky for my liking. I don't know that it's really transferring. I don't see it on my fingers transferring off, so that's good. I do see the outline of where my fingers just pressed into it, whereas when I do it on the, oh no, a little bit, yeah, okay. So they're both, like, honest to God, these things are interchangeable. The foundation, like the reaction of the foundation is basically the exact same. Coverage, minimal difference. Even the colors between these two, for God's sake, is the exact same. So I would suggest setting it. I would set this anyways. Even though it says that it doesn't, it's just a little bit tacky. I would definitely set it. The last thing that I wanted to do, and that was what I was in the middle of doing when my camera turned off, was just doing an oxidation test. So I do have the Fenty and the ABH already swatched on here from before I sat down to film this. And what I'm going to do is just do another little swipe beside it just to see what the level of oxidation, if any, has been. So I'm just going to squeeze a little bit of that out. Okay. So there is a tiny bit, but it honestly could just be more about the fact that the initial swatches have dried. So this, I'm going to just turn the lights down just a little bit so you can see it a little bit more true to color. So this is the Fenty here. So this was the one that I swatched before starting to film, and this is the fresh application. So you can see, like, there's very, very little color difference between the two. Sometimes when you see oxidation, it's almost like a full shade darker that it goes, but that hasn't happened here. Likewise with the ABH, there may be just slightly more oxidation, like there's a bit of more of a difference between these two than there is in the Fenty. But again, nothing that I think anybody would get upset about or even really notice once it dries down. Okay, so that is all the information and thoughts that I have at this point on the foundation. I do intend to check back in later on tonight just to see how it's worn throughout the day. But this is very much a first impressions. I have worn the ABH once, but I haven't had a chance to play with the other because they just arrived yesterday. But straight out of the gate, I don't think you can go wrong with either if this is the kind of foundation that you're looking for. They're very similar. They applied very similarly, and they look, even down to the finish, they look damned near identical. Like, they both have, I wouldn't say that it's dewy. Like, I would say definitely luminous. To me, luminous is sort of like, it looks like it's sort of lit from within. It looks more natural, whereas dewy to me suggests that something's been added to make it look wet, something along those lines. Whereas this just does look very natural, but like kicked up to be like as healthy. Like I've drank all the water that I need to drink, that kind of deal. But they look virtually the same. Like, I really can't show any distinction aside from the fact that this one is just like a hair more coverage, and that could be achieved with this one by just adding more product. For me, I think the kicker would be, I like this packaging better. I think for the price point, it looks a little bit more luxe, the nice glass bottle, than the squeezy tube does, but also this one's cruelty-free. So I haven't committed myself, obviously if I bought this one, I haven't committed myself to being solely cruelty-free, but especially in the case of something like this where there's a $5 difference and they perform out of the gate at any rate basically the same, I would go with the cruelty-free option just personally. Also, I do like that this one didn't crease up around my nose or under my eyes in the way that the Fenty did. So, okay. So that's where we're at right now. Like I said, I am going to check in later on tonight and I'll let you know how it wore and final thoughts at that point. All right, I will see you in a bit. Hello again. In the interests of full disclosure, I'm going to admit something to you. The earlier part of this video was filmed yesterday, and then I forgot to do a check-in. So here we are the next day. I did apply the foundation in the exact same manner as I did yesterday. So again, this half is Fenty, this half is ABH, and I used the Dior Backstage Primer. I did set it today. I set it with the Laura Mercier Translucent Setting Powder, and then obviously I have other face powders and whatnot on top of it. I applied my makeup at about 11 o'clock this morning. It's just about 9 o'clock, so we're looking at a 10-hour wear test, and I do see a little bit of a difference between the two of them. So I'm gonna bump it in and turn the lights down a little bit, and that might help you be able to see what it is that I'm seeing. Okay, so from a distance, I don't see any issues and I don't see any difference between the two sides. When I look very close up though, and I have like the magnetized mirror in front of me, when I look into that, I see that I have some separation going on in this area and on this side as well. And then as well up in this, like between the brows on both sides. That is very common for me. That does happen quite a bit. When I look at the ABH side, the magnified mirror doesn't let me see from a distance. That separation is pretty much just localized into the brow and like lower jaw area, with a little tiny bit of it happening up towards the hairline. But the rest of my face is pretty much all clear from that. The tops of my nose, it's pretty much the foundation's gone from. I was walking around downtown Toronto today. It is quite warm today, so there was a bit of sweat happening, not gonna lie. So it's pretty much gone. Now on this side of my face though, and again, I'm not sure if you can see it, you'd have to probably be a little bit closer, but there is a lot more of that separation happening over here and all up in here as well. See a little bit of it under here. That could be in part due to the concealer. It could be the concealer doing it. But overall, there's just a lot more of the separation happening. Okay, let me qualify it. It's not a lot more, it's just that it is more evident. So there is more of it over on this side. Again, the cheeks are looking pretty good, and this area looks clear as well, but it does stretch up to here. Whereas on the ABH side, it's really just on the chin area, but over here it does stretch up further. And yeah, definitely the forehead is not dealing all that well on this side. That is honestly the only difference that I see between these two products. They both feel the same on my skin. They're both lightweight. I don't have that heavy mask-like feel. You know when you wear foundation and it's like particularly thick, and by the end of the day all you want to do is just wash your face, like you're just aware of the makeup on your skin. That is not the sensation that I have at all. It honestly just doesn't feel like I'm wearing any makeup at all. So I appreciate that from both brands, because they both claim to be lightweight, and they are in fact lightweight. Neither one of them has like really oxidized, so there's really no difference in the color. And the separation I have seen worse in other foundations. So again, like my mirror is maybe about a foot in front of me right now, and I don't see that separation on my skin. It's only when I look up close. So after 10 hours of wear, I can't actually think of a foundation that doesn't separate to some degree on my skin. I don't have oily skin. I have normal leading towards dry skin. I don't have dry patches or anything like that. So I've got fairly run-of-the-mill skin, but for whatever reason, every foundation over the course of the day does separate a bit up here. It usually has gone off my nose, and there is usually some disturbance around my mouth from wiping my mouth as I eat throughout the day. Not that that's been an issue today. I'm still on this goddamn liquid diet. But just from like touching my mouth and things like that. And then just, I think sweat, just helps to break the products down a bit. So final thoughts then is that you cannot really go wrong with either one of these. If you are looking for a medium buildable coverage and you like that luminous sort of finish. If I was to choose one, like I said earlier, I would go for the ABH. It just holds up just a little bit better. It is cruelty-free, and I do like the coverage on this. I like that it's a little bit, just a tiny bit, but a little bit more sheer than the Fenty. As well, in applying it again today, I noticed that the pump on this one is more user-friendly or more consistent than the pump on this one. And now I'm beginning to understand why they have that instruction of squeezing and pumping simultaneously to release the air, because even though this is only my second time wearing it today, using the pump, I did have to prime it a few times. It just couldn't grab the product. So it's a little bit fussier to work with. Again, I think if it had just been a squeeze tube, they could have avoided that entire issue. So I'm not sure why they opted for the pump with this kind of packaging, but they did. And it's yet one more factor that sort of leans me towards the ABH side of things. There you have it, guys. Those are my thoughts on these two new foundations. Like I said, they are pretty much interchangeable, but in my opinion, the ABH just edges ahead by a nose. So I'm going to give the win to that one, but like I said, neither one of them performs badly, and I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I will see you in my next video. Until then, just be a decent human being. Bye for now.